And committee of the whole meeting to order is Monday, August 12th, and the time is 3:37 p.m. Councilors, have you had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a motion for approval?
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The minutes from the last meeting have passed. Next is consideration of the consent agenda. Councilors, do you have any items you'd like to place on consent?
Do you have?
Yeah, I do.
Madam Pro Tem.
All right. All right. These are the items that I'd like to offer for consent. Item number 7 on page 2. And item number 8 on page 2. Item 9 on page 3. And item 10 on page 3. Item 11 on page 4. And item 12 on page 5. Item 13 on page 5. Item 15 on page 6. And item 16 on page 6. As well as item 17 on page 6. Item 18 and item 19 on page 7. Also, item 20 on page 7. Am I doing it right? No. And item 21 on page 8. Did you get those, Council?
Yes. What about item number 22? Is that okay?
Yes, and item
Okay.
22.
Let's go back. Council Abbott, do you have any items you'd like to place on consent?
Well, I was going to say, I wanted to hear a speaker on item 15 previously, but with these corrections we've been given, I'm okay on 15 being
Okay.
on consent.
Okay.
I didn't know, I thought I heard it called, so.
No, but it's okay, we'll add it.
That's what the question was. No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Okay, so items 7 and 8 on page 2, items 9 and 10 and 11 on page 3, items 12 and 13 on page 4, items 14, 15, we'll say 16 on page 5, items 17, 18, and 19 on page 6, items 20, 21, and 22 on page 7. Okay, is there a motion?
Move the
Okay,
items.
wait,
No, sorry.
before we did that.
Yes.
Okay, the items, I'm having a confusing day, but speakers are needed for 4, 5, 6, 7,
Okay.
Yes.
23, and 24, so
Well,
15 we decided was okay.
but not 7. Okay, well,
But seven needs a speaker.
okay, so only for page number 2 is item number 8, that's on consent. Then, so item 8 on page 2, items 9 through 11 on page 3, items 12 through 13 on page 4, items 14 through 16 on page 5, items 17 through 19 on page 6, and then items 20 through 22 on page 7. Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Was there a motion? And a
I
second?
move approval of the
Second.
consent agenda.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda has passed. If your items are placed on consent, you can enjoy the rest of this lovely afternoon. Otherwise, we'll go on to item number 4. This is an ordinance to amend the general fund budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 by transferring $15,000 from Park and Rec miscellaneous revenue and amend the donations fund for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 by appropriating $5,000 to Pratt City Park and $10,000 to summer camp / enrichment program.
Move the item.
Second?
Okay. Good afternoon. Yeah, there we go.
It's on, okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, the items, that's before you, has come from, Senator Smitherman for $10,000 to be used at, summer camps and enrichment programs at Memorial Park. And the $5,000 from Senator Linda Coleman was to be used at North Pratt Park to, well, number one, to resurface the baseball field for the upcoming season, as well as to purchase some benches.
That's great, okay. Counselor Abbott, do you have any questions?
Okay. The $15,000 is in Park and Recreation miscellaneous revenue and the donations fund, so it's 10,000 from one and 5,000 from the other?
Council Abbott, so the revenue part is the receiving of the funds from both Senator Smitherman and from Senator Coleman Madison. And then we're transferring the actual revenue into an expense account for them to spend it on. We have to receive the actual check in accounting terms and then have permission from the council to spend it.
Okay, so when you receive the actual donation checks, you'll put the money back in miscellaneous at Park and Recreation for miscellaneous
For
stuff?
the things that he noted, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, and the 15,000 isn't just for summer camp enrichment program, it's also for repaving, resurfacing something?
The baseball field, right?
Baseball field.
That's the softball field at
Softball field.
North Pratt.
Okay, I got it, thank you.
Okay, Madam Pro Tem?
I don't have any additional questions, thank you.
Okay. Well, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then one abstention from me. That item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item number 5. Do y'all want to call it 5 and 6? Are they related? Are 5 and 6 related? Okay, we'll call it both. Item 5 is an ordinance to amend the grants fund budget by appropriating $800,000 to Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program. And then item number 6 is an ordinance to amend the general fund budget by transferring $100,000 from ARPA and appropriating $100,000 to non-departmental, by appropriating it to the Reconnecting Communities Pilot per grants award received.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Again, I'm James Fowler. I serve as the Director of the City's Department of Transportation. And do you guys want to just have me give a refresher of what this is?
Yes.
Yes.
So I guess it was about a year ago, we were selected for a grant as a part of the Reconnecting Communities program. So when Secretary Pete Buttigieg came to Birmingham maybe 2 years ago, he announced this program. We applied for it and got an award. The total project amount would be $1 million to do a planning study. And what we want to accomplish with this planning study is hire a consultant and work in close partnership with the Transit Authority to develop a vision for 30 years from now, if we are truly going to be a multimodal city, so a significant portion of our population will actually walk, take public transportation, ride their bikes to get to their destination. So describe what that vision is, what we need to look like physically and from a policy perspective as a city, and then define over the next 5 years, what do we need to start working on tomorrow, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, to get to that place in the future. So establish this long-range vision, but create, have that be grounded in a 5-year plan where we can have implementable steps that we can focus on to get there.
Okay, perfect. Madam Pro Tem?
Yes. Thank you for giving us a reminder of what that original grant application was and what we received. I did just hear you say there's like a 30-year plan, but you plan on doing this in a 5-year increment. So is that what the planning study is going to give us this information back of how we can implement this in these 5-year segments?
I'm glad you asked about that. I think that distinction is important. I would call it a 30-year vision.
Okay.
So kind of a picture of what we need to look like, but then a 5-year plan. Because I don't know that we can effectively plan that far out, but we do need to have an image in our minds of what that needs to look like and some concrete idea of what that needs to look like. But ultimately, I think it'll be grounded in a 5-year plan.
And we are doing this in conjunction with the Transit Authority?
Yes.
And how would that role play? Just giving information and that type thing, or just tell me a little bit what that would be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're actually contributing $100,000 of the $200,000 match. The Transit Authority is contributing the other $100,000. And one of the first tasks that we want to set up is to define what does our core high-frequency public transportation network need to look like. So, for example, we have had a bus network that has been very thinly spread out across our region for a long time, and America has in general. We're not unique in that. But now that we've created, for example, the bus rapid transit system, the Birmingham Express, that has become the city's highest ridership route in the whole system. And so what we're finding nationally is that we need to create routes like that to get good utilization. So that means moving away from a model where we thinly spread our bus resources towards having some very core, kind of well-structured, frequent routes. So connecting to North Birmingham with high-frequency public transportation, or, so we need to pick what are those places that we need to connect with those core kind of bones of our transportation system, and plan for those to be high-frequency networks. And so, to your question of what would that look like to partner with the Transit Authority, they already have some idea of that, but we need to solidify what are those corridors that we really want to focus on, because you'll recall it took us years to build the bus rapid transit system that we have today. So if we're going to build several of those over a series of decades, we need to go ahead and kind of pick where those are going to be and start making plans to work towards that.
Thanks for giving me that clarification, because I did, was part of just had a conversation when the new director went in, when Ms. Shaw first went into that role. She sort of talked about this as a vision that they had, and that may have been married to the grant application as well. So just wanted to see how those fit together. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Abbott.
Yes, I wanted to ask about the, and thanks for the refresher. I think we all need them after 52 weeks of meetings every year. You mentioned walking and cycling and using the bus system. So in your determination of how you're going to fix it so people can walk and cycle safely, are you going to, in this 5-year plan, determine which streets you're going to repair and which sidewalks you're going to repair to get the most people to be able to walk safely and cycle safely?
I would say that as a good way to describe it. Yes, ma'am. We want to go through a robust public involvement process, and not just the general public, certainly the general public, but elected officials and other stakeholders, including large businesses and employers, to figure out what are the investments that we can make to get kind of the most effect for our limited resources. So to your question about walkability, we know that if we're going to fix all the sidewalks in the city, that's probably a couple of $100 million to fix what's existing. So we don't have the resources to do that. So we do want to use this as an opportunity to focus on, with the limited resources we do have, what are those areas where we can focus on to have some of the greatest effect, with whether it's with cycling, public transportation, sidewalks.
But there will be specifics in your 5-year plan of where those best collector streets, where people can go on the horrible, dangerous sidewalks to one good one, and they can make it to town without falling and breaking their noses.
Here's how I envision arriving at that. This is a citywide effort. $1 million will allow us to do a lot. It probably won't allow us to go very granularly street by street, but I think it will help us identify what are some of those primary corridors that we need to focus on, and make sure that those are walkable, make sure that those are transit accessible. And then it will probably help us identify some areas around those transit investments where maybe it doesn't pick out the specific streets, but we know that streets that fall within those areas might be high priority for investment in sidewalk repairs and other kinds of infrastructure. And that doesn't mean, I don't want to imply that we would not fix sidewalks in other areas, but it would at least help inform or give us a little bit more framework for how to make some of those decisions.
Well, yeah, if you have limited funds, you do have to focus somewhere. But it sounds like at the end of this planning process, we won't have focused on anything. We will have some broad ideas of where we might go, but we're not going to say, in the first year of the 5 years, we're going to fix this route right here because we think the most people could get to this route and they would start walking to work every day. We're not going to focus on anything. We're going to have generalities that we can then ignore for the next 5 years.
I don't know that I would characterize it that way, but
Well, you probably wouldn't, but the reality people are sitting up here, you know, the ones who see how it really works. And it seems to me that if we don't come up with something that is specific and measurable, that we can actually say, we're going to do this, we're not ever going to get anywhere. I mean, we already got the cart before the horse by taking away the parking before we made walking and cycling safe or made the bus convenient, which is a little bass-ackward, but we're a city. But it seems to me we need to be specific and measurable so that we can actually get something done instead of the usual study that sits on the shelf and gathers dust, and then we throw it away in the recycle bin in about 10 or 15 years because we need to, you know, we need room to put the next study that we've done. I would just like to see something actually come out of the study that we would say, this is the plan of how we're going to get there.
I can speak to that. So there will be several categories of useful concrete recommendations that come out of this plan. And I do not expect it to sit on a shelf. So an example of a concrete recommendation. So let's say that we decide that we want a good connection to North Birmingham, for example. Well, that means that the next time a RAISE application comes up or there's some opportunity for a large grant project, we can focus on that corridor that we decide to connect there instead of, you know, there's a million streets in the city, so we can focus on major grant applications on certain targeted areas. So that's one significant one. Another one is, let's say, for example, that North Birmingham is an area that we really want to build up for public transportation and walkability and cycling within that area. We probably need to revisit the land use recommendations and zoning recommendations around whatever transit investments we make sure that they're aligned with those investments in the physical infrastructure. Now, they're probably not too far off because we've gone through the framework planning effort, but that work's never finished, right? And because when the framework plans were developed, we didn't have this transportation plan. So it just ongoing will go back and forth between transportation planning and land use planning. But an outcome will be that we focus on, or whether it's downtown Inslee or, you know, whatever that those areas that we decide are, make sure that the land use recommendations align with these transit priorities. To your point about, which I think you're maybe referring to sidewalk repairs, I don't know if we could say today that the mayor and the council are ready to say that whatever areas we pick, we're going to fix sidewalks there and not in any other areas. I think we could say that this study will help inform that, but in terms of that exact category of infrastructure investment, I don't think we could say today for sure that this will be the plan for all the sidewalk repairs that we make. I think it'll inform that, but it may not be that. But there will be several buckets of concrete outcomes that will move us forward.
And that makes sense. I mean, but I'm just wanting something to come out of it where we identify, let's say 19th Street is going to be a spine that gets us north to south, and we're going to really work on it, and everybody can walk over there and then use that one, or maybe two of them. But identify something to focus on, because the shotgun approach, doesn't work very well.
We will definitely have concrete things that we can focus on. And there are a number of other departments that I think will benefit from having this plan. So for example, how community development chooses their projects, or how IEO perhaps chooses their projects. So this will inform that. So I think this is it's an important time. I think it's going to be a fun process. So I look forward to it. And I think it's going to challenge us as a city to really prioritize what we want. So.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Madam Pro Tem, do you have any other questions?
That's it, thank you.
That's it. So how long, are we gonna hire the consultant for?
So I would like to have it done in 12 months, but it may be an 18-month process.
Okay. What is it just for, no, it's not. Because I was thinking when, the secretary came, he was talking about 4th Avenue North. So are we looking at other parts of the city or just that corridor, right? It's everywhere?
The whole city.
The whole city? Okay. Okay. Where, do you have an idea of where we would get the consultant from? Like who it would be?
So we want to make sure that we leave all options open. So we're going to do a request for qualifications process. We're actually should be in the next few weeks issuing that RFQ, and we're going to have a fairly robust interview selection committee. May include some outside stakeholders as a part of that. So hopefully in 45 days from now, we'll know who that consultant is.
Okay. Well, Councilor Abbott, do you have any more questions?
Just one more. Is this going to link to the city's sidewalk plan? Will this have any link to that?
I think that we will build on what we found as a part of that effort. And so there's a lot of good information that came out of that effort. So we have, so I think it'll build on that. I don't think, or I can't say today, which we'll decide as a part of the process, but I can't say today that we will come out of this and say we're going to build exactly these sidewalks and not these sidewalks. And so it will build on it. It's the best thing I could say.
Okay, so some of the things in the sidewalk plan that we already have might change to fit in with whatever the consultant finds?
I think that,
Or they'll be in silos and they won't really connect with each other?
no ma'am, the sidewalk effort that was completed, it didn't necessarily rank and prioritize exactly which sidewalks should get built. First, at a granular level, it had kind of different tiers. And so I don't think this is going to change that necessarily. I think we're going to take that effort and other planning efforts that have been done as well, such as the framework plans and others that have been done over the last 5 years, and try to consolidate those and get a clear picture of how to prioritize our investments. So I don't think we're going to dispose of that effort. I think we want to just build on that effort.
Okay, thank you. As a walker, I'm always interested in safe walking. And I know that when we walk to the new sidewalk place and walk where there's lighting. The sidewalks aren't broken into pieces, and they're wide enough for like several people to walk on them. So I think people are drawn to the new and good and safe places, but you got to build those somewhere along the line. So hopefully a plan will come out of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess with the sidewalk, I'm seeing where Council Abbott is going, because if you don't have good sidewalks, you really can't have a walkable city.
They can walk in the street, which
No, they
is what a
can't
lot of
walk in the
people do
street.
now, but that's not good.
I guess, we don't have a consultant for the sidewalk plan. We're still going off the old one, correct? Because I don't even think we
That's
have an
correct.
update for sidewalk repairs for this year for our district.
I guess, I think it's worth speaking about sidewalks again as an example. So what the sidewalk effort identified was that to fix existing sidewalks, $200 million. And that's now several years old, so maybe it's $250 million, $250 million. Well, we're not gonna have $250 million for sidewalks. And so we're gonna have to kind of build off of that effort to hopefully do a little bit more prioritization. I think it's gonna challenge us as a city to have a conversation about how do we prioritize making investments, because obviously that means investing somewhere and then not somewhere else. So I can't say today how far we'll be able to carry that conversation. I hope we can carry it pretty far and come away with some fairly specific projects and ideas. And I hope we can get to some specificity around sidewalk priorities. But it's going to take some difficult conversations and perhaps a little bit of courage to kind of get to that level of specificity.
Okay, because, I'm not a sidewalk expert, but schools, parks, and downtown, I had the very unfortunate but unique ability of being in the walker for a month due to surgery. And I saw firsthand, like, how bad our sidewalks were. Like, I was mad in my mind. I was like, this is what people deal with all the time. I'm just dealing with this for a month. So I would just like to see that with our sidewalk. I know it's related but not related, but I really would like us to do something. Because nobody's going to want to walk if our sidewalks aren't good. Because we could do all this great work, but if people are tripping over, like what Council Appett's constituents have been complaining about, and then our kids are, struggling to go to school, it almost wouldn't, I'm not saying this about it, it's just, it wouldn't matter if we have a plan, because people aren't gonna wanna use it, so. Okay, well, do you guys have any other questions? You sure, Council Abbott?
I'm good.
Okay, all right. Was there a motion? Okay, well, there was a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye, those items passed. Thank you, guys. Next item is item number 7. This is to amend the general fund budget by transferring $250,379.14 from general fund miscellaneous clearing, appropriating the amount to non-departmental transfer to Fund 103 Neighborhood Revitalization, and then amend that fund budget by appropriating that same amount of money to the Office of the City Attorney, funding sources settlement funds from the opioid litigation.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay?
Good afternoon. I'm
Afternoon.
Sheffield, serving the Office of the City Attorney.
Okay, is there anything else we need to know about this item?
Yeah, like an explanation of what we're doing.
Yeah, so this is a transfer from the general fund from funds we received in the first wave of opioid settlement funds, opioid litigation. And we're appropriating those funds to be used consistent with the settlement agreement, transferring them to be expenses incurred by the DNAP program related to opioid abatement.
Okay, Council Abbott.
Okay, so this funding is going to DNAT, and DNAT is in neighborhood revitalization?
So,
Yeah, Chief.
yeah, so Council, this is not the first time that this appeared before the council or the committee. Once we were, I think, a couple of weeks ago, the council voted on a couple of resolutions and noted that we were getting funding from opioid settlement. So this is just a wave of the money coming in. So we put it in the neighborhood revitalization fund because these funds can only be used for a specific reason for neighborhood revitalization, which in turn, Attorney Sheffield was saying, like DNAT is one thing that it can be used for.
Okay, well, that was my question. DNAT is part of neighborhood revitalization?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, good. Now I understand.
Madam Pro Tem?
Well, thank you. I did realize that DNAT was a part of this program, but I know have the series, I know the work that DNAT does when it comes to working out this program, because it can rid of sometimes blighted structures that may be, involved in certain activity. Is this what we're saying, that this would be done, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so, what is the accounting of that? We know we have lists, we have properties, or we have information that's provided to that program, but how do we, I guess, monitor that and regulate it, that it's being effective? Is there anything that we do?
So
or
we're talking
resources
about
that
the
come to us?
DNAT or just opioid
The
overall?
DNAT, since
Okay.
we're putting that money into DNAT.
I can't really answer that because Madam City Attorney's not here because she runs that portion of the program. I think allow us to give her some type of update in a memo form to let you know how the program's succeeding. It's succeeding. I think we know that it has its wins and its losses.
Right.
So I think we just need to allow her that.
Because I just like the opportunity for the public to understand what we're doing and what the success of this is, and that will get more people to want to give us information where we could go and utilize these within our various neighborhoods.
That's very fair. And I know that the mayor shared with President O'Quinn that we will give the council a more robust update when it comes to the opioids and how we can use that fund for the neighborhood revitalization, because it's certain funding mechanisms and restrictions that we can only use that funding for. And we will give the council an update, I think either next committee of the whole or next retreat.
Or one, okay, I think it was retreat, they said. Thank you. All right, thank you, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. Are you good?
Yeah,
Do you have
because
any-
hearing the uses that we're allowed to use the
Yeah.
opioid settlement money for is good for us to understand.
Yeah,
Because you would want to actually be doing things that stop people from using
Right.
drugs. I mean, that
Right.
would be a wonderful thing.
right. I definitely agree. Okay.
It's important to remember, it's specific to opioid abatement. So whatever programs, including DNAT, that are specific to that is allowable use under the settlement agreement.
And what are those?
Oh, there's a list of enumerated.
I know
that
you
comes
gave
through
it to
that.
us, but I guess, can we get it again, maybe? Do you mind, Chief, if we get it again? Okay. Okay, well, I think there's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That item passes.
Thank you.
Next item is item 23. This is for the mayor to expend funds in amount not to exceed $3,000 for the purchase of a heated holding cabinet and 10 stainless steel sheet pans for use by the Powley Neighborhood Association. Said funds to come from their neighborhood association funds.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jason Walton, I serve as the Senior Community Resource Representative for the City of Birmingham.
Okay. Council Abbott, did you have a question about this?
Yeah, I just, it sounded like we were going into the bakery business or something, so I just wanted to know what we're doing.
So they have voted on this based upon them having events. And that was their reasoning for wanting to purchase this particular item. Recommendation personally was that they got the funds sent to Park and Rec, and let Park and Rec house it, because there's no way for the neighborhood to be able to really control how it's used. But again, it met the spending guidelines and OCA approved it. So the recommendation was, it's on you guys to say what that looks like, but that was our recommendation for it to go through Park and Rec and let Park and Rec house it.
Okay, so this is like food service equipment, but they're buying it because they have a lot of food-oriented events, I guess. And their neighborhood meets in a Park and Rec location. So Park and Rec would have to store it for them, wouldn't they? Because they
That's
wouldn't
what's going
take
to
it home
happen.
with them.
Yes, that's what's going to happen, but again, we're not sending the funding through Park and Rec, so it's the neighborhood association who is just asking them to house it, which we have no control over how it's being used. But again, it's been done before. So, that was our recommendation to them, but again, the Park and Rec Board said that they would house it for them.
Okay, so they've agreed?
Yes.
They've got space and everything?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was just curious, because I thought maybe we were gonna, you know, go into the food business. I mean, 10 stainless steel sheet pans, you're doing some hellacious cooking over there. We might need to go and check it out. Anyway, I was just curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Pro Tem?
Thank you. I'm good with them.
I'm good with it too. Well, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The item passes. Thank you, ayes.
Thank you.
And then last item is item number 24. This is a project agreement with Magnolia Point Restaurant, under which Magnolia Point will undertake a project to make improvements to the Magnolia Point building located at 2234 Magnolia Avenue South in connection with the development and operation of a restaurant. And the city will provide financial incentives in an amount not to exceed $364,000 in support of the project, payable in 5 annual installments equal to the lesser of $72,800,000 or 50% of the sales tax revenue generated to the city from the restaurant.
Move the item.
Second.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Wesley.
My name is Cornell Wesley, Service the Director for the Office of Innovation and Economic Opportunity. So Magnolia Point Restaurant will be operated from the historic Magnolia Point building on the corner of Magnolia Avenue and 23rd Street South. The real estate and restaurant will be owned by Mike Moran, and operated by the Pahakis Restaurant Group led by Nick Pahakis. And while the menu will carry a wide variety of different items, the slant will be towards fresh seafood. Plentiful parking will be available due to the adjacent parking lot being owned by Mr. Moran. Total capital investment for this project is $5 million. This project creates over 35 new jobs with an annual payroll exceeding $800,000. It is expected to generate $145,600 in annual new sales tax revenue alone. The sales tax sharing incentive over the 5-year payment term is based upon, again, actual sales tax paid in arrears after sales tax for the previous year is paid. The annual city incentive payment is, again, as mentioned, the lesser of $72,800 or 50% of the actual project sales tax revenue generated in the previous year. There is no carryover. The maximum amount of the city assistance to be paid over that 5-year term is $364,000. Now, paragraph 2-3 of the agreement protects the city in the event of an unexpected closure or relocation outside the city of Birmingham during the payment term. I have with me representatives of Magnolia Point Development who can answer any questions. The owner, Mr. Mike Moran, is here present with us, and we do have a city representative from the Office of the City Attorney, and Mr. Keith Sheffield. Notably, Mr. Moran has also been invested in Birmingham for quite some time. Some of the buildings that he has redeveloped in our community include the historic Federal Reserve Building, of course, 2200 Magnolia Avenue, as well as the historic Greyhound Bus Terminal, and more recently, the Next Tech Building, which is also known as the former Sticks and Stuff Building. Happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Okay, can the owners come up?
I have some questions for
Mr. Wesley,
Mr.
okay.
yeah, Mr.
Well, and then the owners can come up.
Griffin.
Council Abbott.
Okay, I was reading the agreement last night,
Yes, ma'am.
and the agreement sounds like we haven't even started yet. We just have a plan. I thought the restaurant was already constructed and open.
So the restaurant, that is in fact the truth. The restaurant is in fact open. When we began this process, the restaurant was not open. And honestly, there is a clause in all of our agreements that state that you shouldn't be open prior to an incentive. However, I don't think that line accounted for an unplanned disruption in city businesses, which is why we're asking for this exception and still proceeded with the recommendation. I can tell you, councilors, that I personally toured this facility months ago prior to it being completed, and at that time, we began facilitating what is now before you as well.
Well, I have an appointment to visit it next week, and so that was why I was struck by the strange language that sounded like this was a project that somebody was just thinking about doing, and we were thinking about supporting, but it's like finished.
Yeah, yes, and we just don't
But-
want to penalize
yeah.
our business community on what we have experienced.
So you've just been working on this so long that they have had time to construct the entire restaurant before we see the agreement?
Unfortunately, sometimes private enterprise moves faster than the pace of government.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
I hadn't noticed that. Well, I like these kind of agreements because to me, if you're bringing something to the city of Birmingham and you're going to make a lot of money for the city of Birmingham, then it makes good sense for the city to participate.
Yes, ma'am.
To encourage more people to do that. So I like these agreements. I just was kind of like, well, wait a minute. I know I drove past that place and I'm supposed to meet somebody there next week. And, you know, the whole language and the whole agreement sounds like that this is just somebody's great idea.
Yes, ma'am.
I just had never seen one so late in the process, but I'm happy that we're doing it. I mean, Magnolia Point has been languishing for years and years and years, just sort of sitting there waiting for somebody to do something.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is a good thing. I just was struck by the language, like maybe we needed to write a new agreement, but who would want to do that?
All right. Thank you.
Madam Pro Tem.
Yes, just remind me again, how many employees? I didn't write that down.
35 new jobs with an annual payroll of $825,000.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question, thank you.
What's the projected opening date? Yeah, can you just talk, yeah.
We opened February. Yeah. A month ago, I'm sorry.
Open a month ago.
Confusion
Okay,
Projects.
gotcha.
I think we've been open 3 weeks, maybe beginning the 4th. So you will be able to eat there, Commissioner, and you won't have to wear a hard hat and drive a nail. So-
That's good. That's good.
Because I like seafood, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't have any questions. Well, there was a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye, the item passes. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We don't have any old and new business. The next Budget and Finance Committee meeting will meet on Monday, August 26th at 3:30 PM. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye, thank you, guys.
Yeah, that Magnolia Point is